the term that I've read growing up,
Yeah.
flying coffin for
Yeah.
the MiG-21. And very incidentally, by the way, you mentioned the F-104, in response to which we bought the MiG-21s.
Yeah.
That also, by the way, has been called Widowmaker, not
yeah.
by the Indian media, but by foreign media.
But the
Because that
German
also-
media, it was an astounding crash rate when it was in Germany, and it was an extremely unreliable aircraft from the German perspective, and it was called, as you mentioned, the Widowmaker in Germany.
Yeah. But the difference being, whatever I've read online is that when it comes to the F-104, there is a very healthy acceptance that there were design flaws with the fighter jet that actually made the crashes happen. With the MiG, Sandeep, you've covered this field for several decades now. Tell us, one, what actually was the reason for the crashes? Because my understanding would be that when you operate fighter jets in such large numbers, and also something that people don't know, I think, of much is that the MiG-21 was actually also a training fighter jet.
Yes.
So almost every Indian Air Force pilot who graduated from flying school during that period trained on the MiG-21 before they either moved to other fighters or they were elevated to actual flying duties, right? So if that's also going to be your training jet, I would imagine the crash ratio to be a bit higher. So one, as someone in the media, how do you look back at the time when the media began to be calling this the flying coffin? And second, what actually happened with those crashes?
Right. Good question, Dave. Now, the thing is that in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, this is what happened, that you saw a very large number of MiG-21 crashes. That's a fact. Because by then the aircraft was 50% of the Air Force's numbers. And it's just suggests that the more aircraft that you fly, the more numbers that you have, it will be that particular type of aircraft that will crash. And we were losing a lot of MiG-21s, but it's not easy to say there's no one particular reason for that. It wasn't certainly a design flaw. I think it was a combination of several factors. The training aspect that you mentioned is one of them. It's a very hard to handle aircraft. Whoever I have spoken to, they say that, look, this aircraft actually taught us a lot about flying.
Wow.
We thought we were, aces and all that. But the minute we sat into the cockpit, it had great, handling skills. But you had to handle it in a certain way. And you had to be very skilled to fly it. Now, what happened was that we didn't have a jet trainer.
Yes.
That was a big, big mistake. That we allowed this gap to open up in the 80s and in the 90s, the fact that one of the largest air forces in the world didn't have an advanced jet trainer. So, which means that pilots were going directly from a piston engine trainer straight away into a fighter jet cockpit, like a MiG-21. And your landing speeds were 250, 300 and all that. I mean, these are like very high speeds. So a lot of those crashes happened, by the way, when the aircraft was landing, when it was taking off, those kind of things happened. So then also you had the issue of spare parts, right? After the breakup of the Soviet Union, there were a number of the MiG-21s which we didn't have spares for. So you literally had third parties selling us spares. That was also an issue. The fact that your pilots didn't have a good training platform, they were jumping directly from the turboprop aircraft straight away into a MiG-21 trainer and then into a MiG-21 fighter jet. Combination of factors, that's what led to this surge in accidents. And as many of you remember, George Fernandez, the defense minister, then had to fly in a MiG-21 himself to kind of assuage, people that this aircraft was still safe to fly. But, the interesting thing is that I have, in all of those years, I've written several stories. I've interviewed the kin of the pilots, some of the very outstanding pilots that we lost in those crashes, their wives, their mothers. They were heartbroken, and it was really sad what happened there. I never met any Air Force officer in any squadron who said this aircraft was unfit to fly or anything like that. They all had faith in the machine and its capabilities, because they said it's as clear as that. If we don't have faith in the machine, we will not fly it.
Yeah.
It was not that the Air Force had no other option and therefore they were flying it. That was much later, when the fact that you're flying these machines which are over 3 decades old, well into the 2025s, points to a failure at many levels of planning. You didn't account for the LCA is not coming in the numbers that they were meant to be.